very curious about what you're curious about, and I hope you're also curious about what we have found in this 2-year process. So what is going to happen next is we're going to, each of us, say a few words about what we found out and what made us choose this title, Micro Skills in the Macro World. But it's my task to say a few sentences about why we started the Macroanalysis Study Group. It sounds a bit, a bit more grandiose. It was conversations over the last 2 years with these wonderful colleagues, including Jonas, Jonas Wels, who's not with us today, but he's going to speak on video. And I decided to give you my personal story about why we started this group. And there were two motivations. One motivation was that I've always been trying to learn from the originals. And I learned a lot from all these people here. Yeah, big bows to everyone in the Soul community. And I also learned, or tried to learn from beginning from Stephen Insu and Chris Iveson and the Brief Boys, and that meant sitting in groups with lots of therapists and social workers. And at some stage I thought, if I have to really talk to another social worker, I'm going to scream. I need to talk to my people. Yeah, I want to talk shop with my people. Yeah, and I want to do it in a more continuous way, because these conferences are wonderful, but it's sort of a flurry of activity, and then there's a gap of a year, and when is the next conference? Yeah, so I've been, wanting this for a long time, and then the microanalysis people came to my attention, especially when you joined or when Harry Corman started this course. And I really also wanted to get engaged, but I thought focus, focus, what are you working in? It also means saying no to some things. But I thought it's so important, it's so interesting, it's so vital. And I thought that we also, for me, this is part of the essence of solution focus. It's a reflected practice that arises from practice. Yeah, it's not derived from systemic or God knows what theory, but we're looking at what is working in our work. And that's what we need to do also for large-scale organizational practices. Yeah. We'll say a few words about what large-scale means, because there's many, it's big, large scale and mega scale, like Marika is dealing with. So that's what we've been talking about. We've been talking about cases, reflection, reflecting them. And actually this is a vital stage for us. I think it was quite important. We said the conference was quite important for us also to get your feedback, because after 2 years, you can imagine, we are talking to each other. We ask ourselves, is this useful? Who else is interested? How should we carry on? And there's so many questions. Like yesterday when I was listening to you two, Elfie and Dominic, I thought, how do we co-create meaning, but also in large systems? How do we, and when we analyze, what is the smallest unit that we usefully look at? What is the largest unit we can look at? So there's so many questions going around in my head at the moment, still going around in my head. But I hope that we also get some feedback from you, and I hope that you will also engage with us in the possible continuation. I don't know. We'll see. So, what do we associate with micro skills in a macro world? And each of us is going to say a few words about that. And the first person I'm inviting to do so is Mark McCurgo.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thanks, everybody. So, I am going to talk about... Where is the clicker? There is the clicker. So, I'm going to talk about this big picture. And solution-focused work is part of the dialogic OD movement. Now, we were around a long time before they were, but the dialogic OD people, led mostly by Jervis Bush in Vancouver and his colleague Bob Marshak, they put together a whole list of about 40 different ways of working with organizations that were all dialogic. And I'm always grateful to them, because number 37 on their list of 40 was solution-focused conversations. And most of the other organization people ignore solution focus completely. it never gets on any lists. And so this was really good. And so these 40 sorts of ways of working all had things in common, and they're all on the right-hand side of this picture. So most of the kind of common diagnostic methods of doing organizational change follow the left-hand side, which is the planned change model. And it's a bit small to see. So it starts off with define the problem in the top position, then collect and analyze the data, create a vision, plan the implementation, create action items, do that, monitor and evaluate, and there you go. Job done. Except it isn't, is it? It never is. So you have to then find another problem and repeat the process. So you're familiar with this kind of process, and we've seen it all the way through, and anyone who's been involved in things like quality programs and everything will recognize the logic of this diagnostic plan change. It's create a plan and then do it. Now, nothing wrong with that if it works in your situation, or if it's the kind of issue that is amenable to that. So if you want to build a tunnel from England to France, that's probably quite a good way to go about it, because there's a lot of technical challenge in that. But the dialogic approaches are part of this generative change picture. And that's Jervis Bush and Bob Marshak's word, but I like it very much. Because generative means it creates new things. And there's not much in the left-hand side that's about creating new things. It's about doing things you know how to do already. Whereas on the right hand, we start off at the top of the picture with identify the adaptive challenge. And that means that something is happening and you need to respond to it. And then we have reframe into a possibility-focused purpose statement. Now, I don't think they really know what these words mean, but it sounds good, doesn't it? A possibility-focused purpose statement. And this is kind of a platform in my version of SF. So what do you want? What are you trying to do? But it's a possibility-focused one, so it's about looking to the future, not to the past. And the next one is engage diverse stakeholders in generative conversations. And that's the bit that we'd normally call solution-focused working, where you talk about future perfects and scales and what's working already and appreciating each other and small next steps and so forth. And then you stimulate self-organized innovations, which they call probes, which are little experiments, things to try things out. And if you go back to the solutions-focused book, brackets 2002, you will find probes, not invented by Dave Snowden, as he likes to claim, but invented by Shona Brown and her colleague, somebody Eisenstadt, 2 years before that, in 1998. And it's a very powerful idea. And I think with this idea of small experiments to try things out in the real world is so valuable. And it works so much better than trying to figure it all out in advance, which is what you're trying to do on the left-hand side. So take small actions, that basically means, and they might take the form of experiments. And then we have learn from successes and failures, yes. And then we have scale up and embed successful probes. So if it's working, do more of it. And then, of course, the world will have moved on, so there'll be new adaptive challenges to come. The point about the right-hand side, the generative change model, is you don't know where you're heading for at the start. So it's not a plan and implement. It's a step forward, learn, step forward process. And new ideas will emerge in the process, and that's the point. You want new ideas to emerge that you didn't know before and that fit into the situation. And it's the conversation that does the generating. It's not a data analysis that does the generating, it's the conversation. And I think solution-focused conversations are a brilliant way of achieving all of that. So when we're doing solution-focused organizational level work, we are definitely embracing this generative change, emergent change is another way of putting it, working a step at a time, paying close attention to language, and in a way seeing what works and building on it. So for me, that's an important piece of context setting. And if you go to Jervis Bush, they wrote a book in 2015 about dialogic OD, solution focus is mentioned, and I've written one of the little books in their series of dialogic OD books called Hosting Generative Change. And that's quite a lot about hosting and host leadership in bringing people together in a good way for a good workshop. But if you read the book, there's a case study in it that's an invented one. But the heroine of my case study, Michaela Mills, she does lots of activities that are very solution-focused, but doesn't ever talk about it very much. So there's some good learning in there. Now, I've probably spoken for much longer than I was supposed to. So the next piece on the slide is Anton.
I'm the next piece. Okay, I was lucky enough to be part of this group when we got a question in our company, Alfaro, it was an invitation to go to Holland to a healthcare institution, a large healthcare institution, and they wanted to do an MD program, a management development program. They had never invested in developing their leaders. A large group, many people. And I could present the case, and we shared some learnings, and I could take my inspiration I got from the group when I went there for my first initial conversation, and it was a dialogic conversation I wanted to have with them. So talking, not just going there and presenting what we would bring, so to speak, off the shelf. So if you want to build your leadership, this is what we do, this is how it works, this is the A situation, there is the B situation, and these are all the steps that we can take. And the first, the diagnostic model that Mark just showed. I went there inspired by these people, just with an idea to have a good conversation with the initiators of this program, and talking about what are your best hopes. Suppose we do something on leadership here. What are your best expectations? What is already happening? And I really wanted to give them an experience of the work we would be doing. And then and they were interested. It was a very nice conversation. And they asked me questions, what is happening here? And then I could fill them in with what we were going to do. There was a steering group developed in that organization, and with them we had conversation also about how will we know that this steering group will be working well together? How will the leaders know that we're working well together? The clients and stuff like that. So we developed the group together in constant conversations. And every training we gave was not really training, they were full of conversations with them about what works well in the leadership here. What are good examples? We call it success analysis. What do you hope for? What is already happening on a larger scale, but also personally, what are you doing well? And we had a whole trajectory there. And it spread from one part of the organization to the other. And it was really something that was growing. And the steering group I mentioned was there just to monitor. What do we notice is working well? What can we do more of? Where are opportunities to initiate new actions in developing this process? And it's still going on. It's been 2 years now. And it's really nice success. And I wanted to show this: dream work makes the teamwork. You know this quote probably in the other way around. Teamwork makes the dream work, one of those cliches. But what we really wanted to do is have them dream about what kind of leadership do you want to see in this organization. So, the next person on the slide is Susanna.
I love that slogan, Anton, fantastic. I would like to share with you just two learnings about, two main learnings that I gathered from the group. And I would like to begin just by showing you, many of you might know this drawing, this terrible drawing of mine, because when I'm teaching, I say to people, you know, you need to nudge change at all the different in all the different settings. Yeah, the different you're working when you're helping organizations change. You have one-on-one conversations or one-on-three conversations, like in a family group. Then very, very often you're working with teams or with larger groups, and different skills are required. You're more sort of polishing your questions and you're paving the paths for the conversations of others in the team. Then you are coaching organizations, which means that you're preparing a path for this organization, which sometimes takes 2 years, 3 years, maybe just half a year, depends. So that's another set of skills. And then very often you need to pay attention to the organizational ecosystem, to the alliances, their stakeholders, their also external stakeholders, the public, the press, the impact. And that also takes us then, of course, to the world. Yeah, more and more it is important that we, that organizations also pay attention to what impact they have on the world. And I think that's also been our driving motivation at the very beginning, yeah, to find out patterns, solution-focused patterns in the work in large-scale contexts, yeah, organizations and ecosystems that we can use, we can spot, we can identify, that help us have impact on communities, nations, civil society, whatever. Yeah, that's sort of the bit grandiose kind of thinking, or the hope, the wish that that keeps us, that drives us. So my two learnings out of the conversations that we've been having, not only the agreement, actually that's the third learning, that you agreed that all these different kinds of settings that we are engaged in, and then when we looked at the, you know, when we told each other our case stories, it was very interesting because it was not only were we comparing notes, you're doing it like that, and oh yeah, I'm doing it, and that's a useful pattern, but you can see that pattern also in team building, and you can see that pattern also when you have the whole scale process for the organization, and also when you're working with different governmental agencies and in enabling legislation or whatever it is, yeah? So finding out, and it was my colleague, our colleague Jonas, who phrased this for the first time. He said it's like an SF, a solution-focused fractal. Yeah, wie ein Fraktal. Yeah, a fractal, you know what that is, where patterns repeated over and over again into the micro level, but then also you find it on the big level. Yeah, and that was a very interesting recognition, and that somehow also caused the title for this workshop, because we found that often it's when we lose the structure, when we lose the process, because the client needs to be cooperated with in a different way than we think. Yeah, what remains is our way of being. I call it way of being. Yeah, we could also talk about solution-focused micro skills, the small things that you do, the attitude, the curiosity, the respect, the appreciation that you show, and that sometimes that's what remains, or that's what matters, as a matter of fact. Yeah. So over to you, Anton.
Thank you, Suzanne. Who of you is working in micro settings? Please raise your hand. Who is working also in macro settings? Okay, lots of you as well. We would like to ask you to form groups of 3, maybe just the people around you. And even if you're not working in macro settings, just have a conversation in the 3 of you, in the groups there. Suppose you imagine yourself working in a macro context. What do you hope to keep on doing that has been working well for you in this macro context while working in this in a micro context while working in a macro context? What do you hope to take away from what works there? Yeah? Secondly, what would you be doing differently? Yeah? So this larger context, what would it prompt you to do differently? And thirdly, what else do you think could work well to work in a macro context? Okay? Brief conversation among the 3 of you for 10 minutes. We hope you had some interesting thoughts. We're going to go to Sweden for a couple of minutes now.
I've made some notes about what I think has been important for me. One, to invite absolutely everyone, to work with everyone that can be engaged. Take care to enable as many people as possible in the process. I mean, everyone. I mean, everyone's a resource, so make use of them and appreciate them and work with them in their way as much as possible. And really, that is a tone kind of thing. That is a tone you want to send. Everybody is welcome and everybody is invited. The other thing is do your very best, because that's one thing I learned all the time. You know, but don't get full of yourself. It's not about you. It's working together with everybody else, which is important. You're not doing the model. You're doing the model, but also doing you with everybody else there, and doing you in the context that you're in. So it's not about you driving a process. It's you taking care of it, and being around and being mindful and caring. Another thing was bring yourself to your edge, was one thing I've been thinking about, because this process was a process of learning. I mean, it's a unique process. It can never be replicated. I've never been in it before. So I think that was important that I was at my, not only at my best, but also at my edge, you know, the edge of my learning, the edge of what I thought was possible, edge of what of releasing control, of not knowing what I was doing. Being at that edge and constantly being at that edge over time, I think was really important. I don't know how we are set for time. Maybe I should start finishing now, but there's a lot to be said more, but maybe this is all right to stop right now. What do you say?
I say a few more things because this is really interesting, John. Jonas. Yeah.
One thing that the group process has not only reminded me, but also strengthened my beliefs in is how much we've been talking about micro practices. It's not about the big stuff, you know, the big plans, the big meetings. It's the little things. It's the, you know, reaching out to people, having a conversation with them, getting to know them, working with people between meetings, you know, even smaller things like tone, crafting an email, you know, picking up, you know, silences in a meeting and figuring out what was that all about, and then taking care of that somehow. You know, and having not only me doing things, but also creating spaces for other people to engage with each other. It's not just about me engaging; it's about everybody engaging with each other across different, you know, relationships. And also this being comfortable with chaos. You know, things never go as planned. But as long as I'm calm and you know, curious and you know, invitational and you know, and humble and open-ended, as long as I can stay in that kind of space and taking it slow or slower, you know, exploring cracks, exploring when things don't go as fast as people expect, that's fine. And you know, just go with it. That's part of the process. That's part of the learning. And then just accepting that and working with that. I like that a lot. And then last, maybe not least, keep reflecting. I mean, it's also about what you take with you on the way home from a meeting or going towards that meeting. Reflect, ask for feedback, make use of that feedback, find people that you can speak, you know, who could be good study buddies along the way. Because there's one thing I kind of wrote this morning, you are not the finished product. And this might tie in with Marika's, you know, find other people to complete your thinking. You are not the finished product. You don't know everything. You don't know the best way. So just take care of connections and relationships because that is utterly important. And the last thing, and the last thing is, this is something I only discovered recently, which I'm kind of thinking, it's not about being in that place, it's about becoming with that space. If that makes sense at all. It's not about bringing the project, bringing the model to the project. It's about becoming with everybody else in that space. And then you are who you are, because we are who we are, and we like resources. We like things that work. We like things that are useful. And we're interested in what direction people want to go in. And we're interested in creating spaces where people can be their best selves. So yeah, that's what we're going to do anyway. But relinquish that and just become with the people that you're there with, and don't try to do anything. Just become with them. If that makes any sense. I don't know. That's something I'm exploring at the moment anyway.
Super.
That's all right.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jonas. That's fantastic.
Thank you, and have a great conference.
Well done. Yeah.
So I get the honor to follow up on that. And I would like to tell you a little story. Some while ago, I was contacted by a municipality who had a new strategy they wanted to implement in the whole municipality on all levels of employees. And it was a strategy they called resilient working communities. The politicians said, save money, work harder. So they spent 6 months on saying, how can we develop a strategy around that? So they were ready to kick off for all the different kind of professional groups. And I was contacted and said, we have this 100 caretakers. And we know when we present this new strategy on how they work together, and there will be a whole series of small network conferences with other groups, and they have to work together with them. They will be so resistant. They would just sit there and say, yeah, same old wine, new bottles, what are you doing? Saving money again, you just want more for the lousy money we get. So they won't listen to us. Do you have an idea? And I said, well, I don't know if it works, but are you willing to try it out? So they said, yes, you get this one kick-off day, and then we have organized all the network meetings and all that, and we want these caretakers. I don't know if you know caretakers. They're often working very individually. One caretaker in an institution, maybe two. When the heating goes, they just have to fix it right away. When something breaks, it's here and now. So they're very self-confident, you know? They're men of action. From the 100 caretakers, 2 of them were women. So I had that, and the contractor kept telling me, just remind, they're resistant, you know, they won't listen. At the same second we come up with this nice advanced slideshow of 70 slides on how it's organized and all that, they just closed their ears. And I was thinking, wonder why. So, but I got free hands, and I said, before you make this presentation, I would like them to work a little bit with them. So I worked with them during the morning of that day, and we were mainly doing sparkling moments, you know, in all sorts of constellations. So what happened recently where you got help from a good colleague, or you help a colleague, and something you're proud of, and let the other one hear, what does that say that you're really good at? So after that session, they came in with 70 slides, maybe cut down to 50, with all, and really they had some crazy beautiful models, you know, all kind of illustration. They had a lot of money put into that, so it really was visually beautiful. And I could see, as they expected, the caretakers were starting to, I mean, the morning was okay, but now it's really going to get boring. And then, but I agreed with the contractor to say, may I get really free hands? Can I do whatever I want? And afterwards, when they were finished, and I said, okay, so no questions? No questions. I said, good. So they say they want to implement that. But what if I say you're already doing it? What if I say they have their language for it, and you have your language? So do you remember what we did in the morning, talking about all the things you do? Where does that fit into this strategy? And they was just like, yeah, he's actually right. We are doing it. I said, maybe they want you to do it more, but I can't say anything against that. And maybe they don't see you doing it. So how can you make it more visible? How can you tell them, there, and there we're already doing, and we're doing this and this and this. So the rest of the afternoon went on by telling this top management, these very hot people, where and what they were doing already in that strategy. And the deal was, they were telling it, so afterwards they could negotiate. Where can we do more, or where do we do enough, and all that. And I said, that's beyond my control, but I think it's important. But this whole change of saying, they just have another way of explaining it. Maybe you need to tell them in a way they can understand that you are already doing what they have been spending 6 months on thinking you should be doing. I didn't say that, I wanted to be paid as well. So, and I wasn't on the rest of the network meetings, but I did talk with some of the people who hired me, and they were very happy. It completely changed the communication with the people. The caretakers were full on. They were joining the network meetings with the other kinds of employees in the community. And the only little bit annoying thing that every time they said, so we would like that you think about this, and they would say, we're already doing it. Actually. But this very simple interaction and saying you're not starting from scratch. Maybe you're not doing the full volume, but you are doing it to some degree. So let me know, where do you do it?
Okay, I think this is a bit challenging order after your great story of caretakers. But I'm truly thankful for Suzanne for initiating this group of solution focused in large scale or microanalysis, if you wish, since this is the world where I have spent the huge part of my working life as a solution focused practitioner. And this is a picture one colleague of mine drew a few years ago, and for me it's a very good illustration of the task and the organization of public sector, despite which country you talk about, despite which society it is. So here in the left, there are lots of regulated organizations doing their best for the society and people in very siloed way, in very, very specialized way. And then they take a few different kind of actions, but actually all those things, they come together in human life of one person as a whole. You don't have your environmental arm and your healthy leg and the social leg. So they are all if it works or not, what we do for the society, it is something that is achieved together. And I think it's very good that solution-focused practitioners have done so much good in making teams flourish, making organizations flourish. But when we took a look at the public sector, administration, societies, it's not enough to ask how to make this ministry successful. Because it's a very partial picture of the society. One ministry, usually with specialists of one area, working together are doing. So it can be a very harmful question. And so in this world, it's the questions that I think people should be interested in is, how is our society doing? How is the world doing? How are we doing our work in that context, in that world? And and is it really so that we are providing solutions and public policy that fits with the time where we are living in? Or is it just we are following the same old routines based on that siloed view of the world? Because I've been working in this world as a solution-focused practitioner for decades, so there has been all the time in my mind a question of, what are the solution-focused questions in this world? It's very many solution-focused questions. We know how useful they are. But the focus in many cases is very much focusing on the individual, how individuals can be their best in what they do. And that's, of course, very, very important. But in this kind of a world where it's really the focus should be more in that, what is the impact of your work, and are you doing your work in a way that it gives it's not your flourishing, it's the flourishing of the society, which is the goal. So we were thinking that each of us picks up a few things that we have found, like if we have to pick the most important things in this micro context, so what would we bring? And for me, after this long time working together, I picked these questions. So bringing people to that phase where they are thinking on what can we do looking at others. So really lifting, they look to the broader context. And here are some of the questions I have found extremely important and useful. So who is solving the same problem or issue you are? Who is interested in the same change? Who is... And that those persons can be inside your own organization, they can be outside your organizations, there be other organizations, there can be societal groups, there be citizen initiatives. And it's extremely important to see that there are people who are actually doing that already. And they might have very bright ideas how to do that. So you don't have to solve that by your desk. And what this bridge building over administrative sectors, this bridge building towards other societal players, bridge building to companies brings is that your thinking is completed. And I think in any situation, it's extremely important, with whatever change you want to initiate, ask who completes your thinking. Because wherever we are, wherever we work with, we have quite partial view. And if we have worked with the same specialized issue for decades, so it's just granted that our view comes quite partial. So, and this, some of you know that I just wrote my doctoral dissertation about public sector leadership meta skills. And there the idea was to look at what helps public sector leaders to build these bridges to cross borders. And it's one application of solution-focused thinking in this world. But here I think we have got very good formulations of how important it is to co-construct meaning for generative change. And I think this bringing people to these kind of conversations is super important there, and they can be the fractals of solution focus in any environment.
Get a bit of a feeling? I think you get a bit of a sense of the kinds of conversations we're having, like also when we meet, like stories and cases, and then a little bit of theorizing and reflection and so if you're still up for it and not too tired, there's another story coming. Yeah, and it's a case story of mine because I wanted to hear one of yours, Marika, but you said it would take too long, and I think it was, so I hope mine is a little bit shorter. If you want to hear more from Marika and from Jonas about their work between organizations, yeah, on a national scale, join the meetup. I'm hosting a meetup regularly every 1 or 2 months, and the next one is on the 21st of June. Yeah, so midsummer night, together with us, all of us are going to be there, and Marika and Jonas as the stars, and I think that should be a good opportunity. Anyway, I'm going to time myself to 15 minutes. It's a case that took about 2.5, 3 years, and I'll get as far as I get in my story. Yeah, if I only get to 1.5 years story, then that's fine. I want to tell more about the beginning, because that's when I had the most scope to apply solution focus, and then we get to a low point and how we got out of that low point. If I get that far, then that's great as far as I'm concerned. All right? So here we go. I remember the case, the story, the interaction with my customer started on a cold March day in March 2018, and I was invited by Mr. King. He was the board member of a international finance group, and he invited, I was going up the escalator to the plush executive floor, and I came into his office. It was a huge office, And one corner of his office was filled with 4 pin boards, yeah, like the ones that we have in the room. Remember, imagine 4 of them, and instead of resource envelopes, it was full of problem posties. Yeah, he'd been so dissatisfied with his business area that his assistant, Nico North, had said to him, Mr. King, why don't you do something about it? Why don't you start by mapping it out? And he did. And he spent a lot of time discussing his 8-page problem map, yeah, with his division heads in Austria. He had 4 division heads. Actually, it was 6, but I'm leaving out 2, otherwise it gets too complicated. And they had all agreed with him on the problem, but none of them had been able to offer him a solution or even been able to tell him a way forward. So he'd found one of my books, yeah, and he thought, maybe I'll give you a call, maybe you know a way forward. Yeah, so he was a little bit warmed up to solution focus, which was nice. And he started telling me more. Yeah, so then he immediately wanted to take me to this problem wall and talk about it. He told me a little bit more about his setup. Yeah, his setup, he was responsible for the sort of daughter companies, a network of 16 banks in 16 different countries, plus Austria, 17 countries. And they were all very, very different. Some were greenfield operations, some had been bought, old communist banks with thousands of people, which had to be slimmed down, others had to be built up. The distribution of the sources of income was very, very different. It was a very profitable organization. Yeah, so that was not the problem. But they were old legacy systems. They were doing it at great cost. Yeah, if a customer said, okay, we want to do business, I want a transaction partner, somebody to do project finance, export finance, payment systems, services within the whole SCE and CIS region. That was their USP. Some of that they had to do manually. Yeah, and some of that they couldn't do at all because the people in the countries didn't know each other. They were not financially rewarded or motivated to work together. Yeah. So, but I don't remember this problem map anymore. And anyway, we didn't dive into it too much because I remembered from a supervision session with Chris Iveson on another case. He said to me, "Don't be afraid to really quiz him." Yeah, I was also coaching a board member, and there was a conflict, and there was a big drama. And he said, really quiz him. So I did. Yeah, I said, well, we must reserve the last half hour so that we can brainstorm together how I might be able to help you. And after all my questions and that conversation, sort of ticket office conversations, I heard him say, well, I know you can't give me a solution either, but at least you can help me find a way forward. Yeah, so that we can start dealing with all these problems. I thought, okay, I can cope with that. Now we had some more conversations. I then also Nico, his executive assistant, he became my co-coach eventually. Yeah, I was very only 28, but very dedicated, very clever, and we came up with what Carl or Mr. King called his intention. Yeah, because best hopes and that didn't work. So he called it his intention. His intention, in a nutshell, was, and this was also an invitation that was sent out to the 16 board members who were going to come to a meeting in Vienna, to optimize our business model in an evolutionary way, in order to even more effectively. Yeah, because they were already servicing effectively, serve their customers both at a local level, because that was going well, but also jointly, and that was the springing point, yeah, the vital point, jointly at a group-wide level, yeah, to deliver sustained business results year after year. That had to be in it because that was what the whole division was about. And then he invited them into a joint process to shape up the organization and so that it can be at its best. And he invited all the board members into a dialogue. And that invitation went out to them in good time with some questions that plus, here is another way of looking at the intention in a nutshell. Basically, and we used this image also when the board members came to Vienna. Yeah, we said we would like to, or the organization would like to move from brilliant soloists playing in their separate local markets towards playing together to make use of group-wide opportunities. Yeah, and that somehow we had lots of images with music and singing and whatever. So, but first we had to work with I had to work with the division heads, because they were not talking to each other. Only 2 of them were talking to each other, these 4 people. And I tried to have conversations with all of them before they met, but it wasn't possible. The only person who I could speak to was Ingrid, the female one, and she was the most upset and said, these guys, they don't talk to me, and it was only a star-shaped communication, everybody talking to Carl, and but not to each other. So we had to begin with that. We asked them what to keep as is, what is already working. What should we change, or what should we tackle? We've formulated a little bit different. How to structure the process of cooperation, how to go about this, and then also, are you ready to be a host for the upcoming board member meeting? There was a meeting in a few weeks' time. That's why we had to quickly do this workshop, and we asked them to host the conversations, and I prepared them a little bit, told them about World Cafe, and gave them a little bit of instruction how to reinterpret their role as a host rather than a leader who's saying, this is how we go about it. Those were the 4 questions that we posed to the board members. We sent those out so that they could prepare. So they had about 2 weeks to think about these questions. We also said, please talk to your people about those questions. So what's working, what should we keep? And when they came to Vienna, when they started to talk about it, it was Carl was really surprised how many things they mentioned that they should keep, that we're doing, because he thought he'd recently made a change in the account manager structure, and he thought it wasn't working. But they said, no, it's working, and we're getting there, but we should definitely keep that, and stuff like that showed up. What needs revision and we need to tackle? We thought the word tackle better than change. How would you like to contribute in a joint process? We asked them on ideas, and they said, we want to do it, and we want to be engaged, because before they'd only been invited to come to Vienna to get their marching orders. Once a year, budget report, budget goals for next year, go. So that was it. And they said, no, we want to do this together. And then we also asked them, do you have any best-in-class business initiatives to share? Because lots of these organizations had good ideas. They had, Albania had developed a very interesting customer platform that Kosovo and Romania was interested in, and stuff like that. And we dipped into that wall. We made a wall of resources, and they could go back to them, to those resources in the upcoming meetings. They did it immediately. They immediately started talking, Ukraine was still, the Ukrainian manager was still talking to the Belarus and to the Russian managers, and they said, let's do something together, and all kinds of initiatives arose. But before we did this exercise with the 4 questions, that was the warming up exercise in the morning, and that's the motto we kind of gave the whole process. That's what we started with. The motto was enjoy shaping our successful future together. And I did a little mix and mingle with what did you enjoy yesterday, because they had a party. When did you last shape something really successfully? And then also some sharing of initiatives, and that's interesting, and can we hear more about that came about? And then our successful future together, that's basically the best hopes question that we collected in the plenary. So that was part of the creating a home for solutions to arise. Then we did the 4 questions individually, and then we did the World Cafe And then I asked the division heads to be a host plus a co-host with somebody from the network, anybody that they felt comfortable with, and there were 4 tables on 4 topics that we had clustered out of the tackle page, and came up with very clear agreement on what 4 topics they would like to work on. So that was the morning that we had together with the board members, and it went on over the summer. After the summer, we sent them back home and said, "Look, think about this a little bit more. If you're okay, we'd like to form some work streams with that. The people could still switch. If they had been at one table, they could go to another work stream if they were more interested in that. But we left it up to them. Talk to your people about what initiatives could be done." And over the summer, these work streams formed, and 46 initiatives were proposed. It was quite poor. It was unheard of. Everybody was really surprised. And also originally they wanted to do a tender, and they wanted to bring an expert consultant on board, because that's what was their model. We need a consultant for big data and process optimization and all those sorts of big topics. And then we met again in the autumn, but now the challenge, of course, was the mindset was big project approach. We researched wallet sizing for 2 years. We have a tender, we have 5 expert consultants make offers, and then we start working. And we wanted to get away from that. We wanted to get them to start experiments. They could start some of the 46 initiatives. They did start, but we wanted focused joint initiatives, and we wanted experiments in these initiatives. So. What we did was we introduced them to the concept of minimum viable product. And I'll say something about that. Nico and I became friends with an internal agile coach, and that was part of the hidden agenda. That was what was not talked about in the official contracting. But our board member was 2 years away from renewing his mandate, and the organization was supposed to go agile within 2 years, or 3 years. And our board member had the reputation, he was sort of an old school kind of guy, and he said, "Oh, we're doing deal teams anyway, we are agile." And that's not what the agile team in the organization thought. So what we tried to do was to sort of phase in, and I always feel, if you test a method, if you want other people to apply a method, you should feel it on your own skin. So we tried to get the board members to experience these methods. So Rupert helped us with that. It was unofficial. He had to clock out for lunch in order to talk to us. But then it became official, and I ran a leadership program with him, and he helped us very much. So we had a speedboat challenge in the next board member meeting, where we selected the 12 initiatives for joint and focused action. We had a meeting jointly with the risk division, which was also an innovation, because they were always complaining about the enemies, the risk guys over there, they stop us. Then in November already, the work streams reported on progress, they did impact maps, and we had a fun session with a musical theme. We got them to all do this. We sang the song together. We will rock this. And you can imagine 20 guys, all in their business suits, going on the table. We will. It was really, it was very powerful. And then 2 new people came on board. One of our division heads dropped out because he had burnout, and another was retired. So 2 people were, 2 of the key leadership team were suddenly gone. Okay, so I said, thank you. I said I was going to stop where I was going to stop. So that's year 1. Yeah, I'm stopping before the low point comes, and we can have conversations later. But you have seen one cycle, I think. Yeah, how something can be started, something can be set into motion, and then later on the challenge was to bring new leaders on board to phase this into a new strategy. Yeah, to map it. I really had to think of that. So we managed to do that also, and the story continues. Thank you very much.
So we want to give you, you've heard all sorts of stuff from the members of the Macroanalysis Group. We want to give you a bit of time to reflect on that. So here is the reflecting team process. So we're going to ask you to get into, to make it easy, groups of about 6, which is 2 of the groups you were in before, kind of match up with another group, and then have 2 rounds of reflections. One is the affirmation phase, and each of you go around the group, one thing that impressed you, what highlights, struck as a solution focus, whatever. One thing each around the group. And then the reflection phase, just what does it bring up for you? I wonder how I might use this. I wonder how this connects with that. Whatever you want to say. This reminds me of, I compare this with, well, you know, connect it up with your own experience. That's what we'd like you to do.
We would like to hear something from each group, so that you could pick from each group, first of all, one affirmation. We are very hopeful that you have some kind of affirmation that we are on the right path, and we are eager to hear what did you discuss on in that part. Just one thing from each group, quickly. Would you like to start there?
It's great to learn from success stories. We were very impressed by Susanne's energy and success story, and this makes it very easy to take away things, and it's nice to learn from that.
Very good word here. Okay, there we go. Oops, sorry. Okay, you have one.
Yeah, many things that we picked up, many affirmations. To choose one is one thing Jesper brought in about the question: how does what you already do fit in the strategy? So that it's not always necessary to have a 100% clear view of what is this strategy to then look for things, but that you look at what are we doing, and so yeah, what does it say about the strategy? So one of the many affirmations we mentioned.
Thank you, great. What about ladies here?
We were very impressed by this who completes your thinking and who is interested in solving the same problem. We can imagine that this can be really encouraging, especially in the context where you're working.
Thank you. And here, next to this group.
For me, looking at the macro world, now I really understand it very well from every presenter and from the group, that you need to involve as many people as possible in the process.
Yeah, great pickup.
Here?
No option. Thank you for everything. I like this question. We discussed it also in the group. You know, who is interested in the same problem you are? You know, it's actually the stakeholder part of that. What else do we have from the group?
Maybe you could continue to the reflection, since we are thinking how to go further. So it's very valuable to get your reflection. So what else did you discuss?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could do a spontaneous reflection. So what also impressed us was enjoy the process. So this different view on change, being part of it and enjoying it. And we didn't discuss it here, but so I love it, and I think I wonder. About your experiences, what difference does it make when you asked what are you enjoying?
Yeah, very good. Positive feelings go further.
We were very much impressed by how you all navigated in an ever-changing world, and hopefully. And it's clear with you with the solution focus and how that helps in this, like Jonas said, in this chaos. And then to navigate in there was very impressive for us to see.
Great. Then we go further here again. Other reflections?
I think there was a common, where we felt very motivated to copy the learning process. It's like, wow, this is such a nice, great way, and COVID taught us so many things about how to do electronics, so we can do it across borders. So there was a lot of appetite here in this group.
Okay, some more reflections from here. What else did you talk about?
One of the things was still the importance of the thoroughness of micro level actions, because out of what you've been sharing, we noticed how important every micro level action has an impact on a macro level, even if it's not measurable instantaneously. So being even more thorough in and knowing that whatever we do has a bigger impact.
Yeah, we actually had a pre-workshop about the same topic in Copenhagen last autumn, and this was also one of the findings of the participants. Okay, from here, what else?
I was not part of the first two presentations, but finally what you mentioned, celebrating the success makes a big difference. On the one side, to show that the process is at a certain stage, or maybe finally and closed, and now we can celebrate what we have achieved together with songs that makes a difference. Of course, with a speedboat, whatever, such things makes a big difference, I'm sure. Thanks for sharing.
Okay, thank you very much for all the groups, and now final instructions are given by Jesper.
If you want to share a case, if you want to get in dialogue with us, we do hope so, yeah? Because, and if you're encouraged for learning and doing it yourself, then please do it. Just go for it. But if you also want to share a case with us, let us know. Yeah, we're very interested in hearing from you. We can also share cases during the meetups that I'm organizing. So, let's carry on the good work. Okay?
Yes, not to forget that this is a study group. Yeah.
It's still in progress.
Yeah. So before I give you a final task and send you out the door, do you want to give applause? Good. I will now give you an instruction, and listen carefully, because I will only say this once. Okay? Your task is now, and don't do it before I'm finished with talking, to get up, find a partner, and this is not your partner for life, but this will be your partner from the point where you're standing all the way out to the coffee table. You do not part on the way, okay? And on the way, you will talk and share about what is different now about being curious about this SF micro skills in a macro world. And maybe it will first arrive in the morning when you get up again. You said, yes, that was it, what I got from it. So suppose you have done that time of a reflection. What will you tell your partner on the way to the coffee table? Will you say, now I realize? Okay? So get up, find a partner, and don't part before you have reached the coffee table. Okay.